let's just adjourn. Why does that become? Jesus, why did that become a thing? So every time Shelby runs it, she always sends me the first and the second. I was like, maybe it's because those were the end of the meeting ones.
Mr. Nolup, do we need to wait until you're broadcasting too? Or no, this is just going to be live streamed?
Do I need to go on and start the box cast?
No, it should be starting. If you could poke your head in and tell him that we're in the meeting.
Are they ready to go? Does look like it is broadcasting.
Mr. Nolup, do I need to wait until you are running either a live stream or a broadcast before we start?
Yeah, if you can give me one more minute, I'll just check with the booth to make sure they're ready, and then we'll go forward.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, you are free to go.
All right, and we are convening out of an executive session, so we are already in session here. Next item on the agenda is council liaison reports. And do I have all members of council? I don't. Oh no, there's Councilor Anderson. Okay, and Councilor Newton's I think just joining. So let's start with Councilor Lube. Do you have any liaison reports?
No, we had a PRAB meeting yesterday, and we got some really good feedback and some good reports from the staff, but nothing big to share. The rest of the meetings are this week, so.
All right, thank you. Council President Goodhouse?
Not quite a liaison report, but there was an email that went out with me being on one of the water boards with Willamette River Consortium. Macerich reached out to me, and I shared it with the mayor about a water project that was being done in Greenberg and was going to be scheduled during the holiday time. So currently, Macerich and TVWD are talking together, and it looks like that project that was supposed to start maybe October and go through the holiday season, looks like they might be able to move that to January. Otherwise, it would have been done right there in Greenberg where the main entrance in and out was being done. So looks like we might be able to work on that and get that moved to not affect their holiday traffic. They're really counting on, a lot of those businesses are counting on about 40% of the sales this time. And it looks like this it's going to be a longer shopping season with COVID. People are going to start probably mid-October and go through the Christmas season. So they're really counting on that. So they're still in talks and hopefully moving that project. Other liaison or maybe council update is I'm sure everyone knows LOC conference is tomorrow the next day. So that'll be going on remotely. That'll be a fun conference. Attended TTAC and they discussed the letter to TriMet and kind of the discussion with TriMet a little bit. So they're still wanting to make sure that Hall Station, that's still a priority for them. So they're still discussing what that looks like, and they still want to be involved with TriMet as well. So I gave them a little bit of update to what happened from the council meeting.
Excellent. Anything further?
No, thank you.
Councilor Anderson?
Like Sean mentioned, I was on the Tigard Senior Housing Project open house. There's probably about 20 people on the call. Most of the people from Omara concerned about parking, and I think they did a good job of quelling any big problems on that, and so we'll watch that going forward. I had my last Regional Water Providers Consortium board meeting, and so that's going to be in the hands of somebody else next year, and me and Mayor Axelrod are leaving that board, so that was good. Nothing really to report except for our dues are going to remain the same, if not be a little bit less next year, and I think that's about it. Most of my stuff has been canceled, so.
What makes you think we're going to release you from having to be the liaison to that group?
Well, you know, they're trying to get Metro to join back up. Metro was a big member of that board, and they paid a lot of money, and they backed out. So they're trying to get Metro back in at probably a smaller cost, because it probably makes more sense that way. So we'll see.
Okay.
Never say never.
Councillor Newton.
I thought I had the unmute figured out, but I got to go to another plan. Anyway, last night, Council President Goodhouse and I had one of our quarterly meetings for the LOT Tigard Water Partnership, and heard a lot of information about how water service was provided in the area due to the wildfires, and was really pleased that our emergency intertie system worked really well. And then we spent some time getting a preview of what the budget's going to look like, focusing mostly on safety improvements, process improvements, and some resiliency things. Now that we're almost 5 years onto the plant, you know, we're looking at doing some things that'll really sort of, make it even more efficient. So had that meeting. We didn't have a PAB meeting this month. The Committee for Community Engagement had a good session, and Chief McAlpine was there to talk a lot gave a good presentation, kind of background as we're moving forward on the Public Safety Advisory Board. So that was a really good discussion, a lot of good conversation there. So that was the highlight from that meeting. The Tigard Youth Advisory Council, since Emilio Calderon isn't on the call, they are doing something kind of innovative. They are starting a peer program, and what they're going to be doing is they're getting volunteers who are going to go through training, and the idea is that they've adopted a couple of schools that are going to be providing tutoring to younger kids, some of these folks that are really challenged with trying to do this digital distance learning. So the students, our TYAC members, have developed a program, and they're lined up training and getting volunteers, and so they're pretty enthused about that. And then they're looking forward to maybe having a role in whatever we do for trick-or-treating. So they were looking at that. And then I don't know if all of you caught me on the Universal Plaza video. Just saying. I was in the video, so I spent some time on that too. So, and you know me in technology, we had to do one do-over, so, but anyway. So.
Well, Councillor Newton, your audio and video quality today is remarkably better than, at least for me, in the past. So I don't know if and maybe it was like that a week or two ago, but it seems like, have you changed your setup? Because it's just much better.
I haven't.
Really?
I don't know. Maybe
right.
I actually know what I'm doing.
Okay. Well, it's really much cleaner. So,
Mayor, can I piggyback off Councillor Newton?
Sure.
I wasn't sure which part Councillor Newton was going to cover on LOT. I wanted to also update the council that we had scheduled for November 2nd. We're going to start the first parts of the process of working on a governance agreement. And we were going to start on November 2nd, but we've decided to move it into January. I think we decided on the middle of January with not be able to meet in person, and we felt the best way to really have that process of what we want to do for a governance agreement and the next steps with our partnership would be better to do in person. So that's going to be moved forward. And another piece of information that was talked during our conversation last night was during the fires and the wildfires, there's a lot of thought that goes in as far as what chemicals are used and what may run into the rivers. And so when the firefighters may use different foams or chemicals or so forth, they do let the water department know. But also we have one of the most advanced treatment plants in the nation. So we are set up, and we are one of the few ones that are set up to process that. But there is that coordination between if something's going to be used, and then they let the water treatment plant know so we can go ahead and take care of it. The one concern, though, that's going to be happening is with a lot of these fires that happen, a lot of the banks with the vegetation, the trees and so forth, a lot of that burned away. So there's going to be some worry that there might be erosion of those banks going into the river and may affect the rivers in the next couple of months with the rain. So that's something they're having keeping an eye on and seeing how that may or may not affect the rivers and the river quality water. And also something that was interesting that some of the chemicals they use may actually may fertilize the water if it is in there and make more of the blue and green algae blooms. But I don't think any of that got used, so we don't have to worry about that this time. But they do watch that to be careful that there's not any of those that may fertilize the water and cause some of that bad algae to grow.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Newton, anything further?
No, that's it for me. Thanks.
All right, I will give an update on a couple things. One is we had a Washington County Coordinating Committee meeting yesterday. Couple presentations that had some content that I think all of our council and our community would want to know about. One was, I think, the same presentation that was offered at JPAC a couple weeks ago around the orphan highways. What I will highlight for our council is that this regional project to assess what they're calling orphan highways and or state highways that they feel like perhaps should be transferred over to local control includes 99W, and quite a bit of discussion about that. I actually raised a number of questions. So did Metro Councilor Dirksen, former Tigard mayor, and Commissioner Rogers, all basically said that it really makes no sense to be talking about transferring a facility that is used for way more than a lot of local trips. And that 99W, just in this context, I don't even, I have to be honest, when they described their criteria for inclusion, it didn't even make sense to me why they were looking at it, because it just didn't make a lot of sense. So I just want you to all be aware of that, though, that will appear on this report out, and they're very aware that the city of Tigard has like zero interest in that related to 99W. So just a heads up there. Any questions on that point? The second thing that was presented that I think you all might want to know is, I think I've reported before that there's been a significant amount of work done on bridge resiliency and trying to prepare for sort of the Cascadia subduction zone earthquake, and making sure that there's a bridge that's still standing between the west side and east side of Portland. And the Burnside Bridge has been identified for a whole bunch of reasons as the bridge that needs to stand, and it is clearly not prepared to do so now. So this is a project that's been being worked on. What is new information on that front is that they have selected a locally preferred alternative based on cost. And the locally preferred alternative does have a span that goes much further into the east and west areas of the city right now than the current bridge. And a lot of that is for cost and design reasons. The amount of liquid, particularly on the east side of the bridge, the area that's expected to be liquefied extends a pretty significant distance on the east side of the bridge. And so digging down and constructing a structure through the liquefaction has to go down about 150 feet to get to solid material to be constructing from. and they want to do as few of those as they have to do. And so if they have a long span, they only have to do that on the east side, I think, one time. And so that will dramatically decrease the cost of the project. The other thing that's been eliminated is there will not be a temporary span put in place. So there was a lot of analysis done about how long that will, or what the impacts are in increased travel time, both by vehicle and by bike and pedestrian. And actually bike and pedestrian is where there's the sort of the biggest impacts. Car and vehicle trips, it's more like a couple minutes, but for auto and pedestrian in the 4 years of planned construction, those trips are going to be significantly longer, like in the 15 to 20 minute longer range. But the cost savings of not building that temporary span is like $90 million. So it was not felt that the $90 million was worth spending for that benefit for the temporary period of time. So any questions on the Burnside Bridge updates?
Other than being happy I don't have to use the Burnside Bridge. That's going to be rough for people who have to use it.
It is. Luckily, I mean, for pedestrians and bicycles, it's going to be a particularly significant impact.
There's no point
for vehicles, luckily the modeling indicates that the time won't be dramatically longer. But let's see. Last update I have is I have been appointed the chair of the Metropolitan Mayors Consortium subcommittee on diversity, equity, and inclusion and police reform. And the reason I'm mentioning that, oh, you're clapping. People are clapping. Okay, I did not expect that, but thank you. I should bow. The reason I'm mentioning it is that we're going to be putting forth a couple of ideas. You know, the Metropolitan Mayors Consortium typically looks at a legislative agenda that's kind of more, I don't know if I'd say reactionary, because sometimes we put original ideas forward, but oftentimes it's kind of the typical, reacting to what are the legislative concepts and the work that the legislature is already doing. And on this front, there's probably at least one area that we're going to be pushing that we think the legislature should be talking about around police training that they're not. And that's really, I haven't given Chief McAlpine a heads up about this, so I feel a little bad that you haven't had a heads up. So sorry about that. But you're hearing it now. But it will be, instead of this topic around chokeholds and being very specific around that, or carotid restraint, we're suggesting that there be a much broader evaluation of what content should be included around both airway management and understanding of the respiratory system. I think you all saw some of that that's one of the sort of topics that I added into things that would be considered by our Public Safety Advisory Board. But as I've thought about it more and I've talked with the likely person that will be in the House District 35 seat replacing Margaret Doherty, who also happens to be a paramedic, we both agreed that we were both reflecting on how often we would have to ask police officers to reposition a patient on a gurney that was restrained. And she and I had very similar experiences, which was that it's very frequent. And as we were thinking through that and talking about it, it's become clear to me that I think, given the impacts and the number of times that people are restrained in various positions and there is no medical people around, this is probably a topic that warrants some significant additional sort of evaluation and discussion. So it will be that, and then three other topics, a couple on police reform. And then we're also going to be pushing the digital equity. So I thought our council would be really curious to hear that. We're going to be pushing that as our other major, in the area of DEI and police reform, we'll be pushing that as the other major topic. So any questions on any of that? Okay, and it is exactly 7:20, and Mr. Nullup, you would like us to recess until 7:30 for technology, right? You want to get ready to broadcast?
That would be much appreciated if we can. Yes.
Okay. Is there anything further, City Manager Wine? Did you have anything to report during the workshop or the study session? Excuse me.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor. Interim City Manager Kathy Nyland is going to be doing the reports tonight.
Okay. Interim City Manager Nyland, do you have anything?
You're on mute. We didn't hear you.
I said I do not have anything to report for this session.
Okay, we will recess until 7:30. Thank you.
they don't, since they don't have to read the title of the resolution, I hope they don't, but it's on their script. That kills me. Three out of four what? Oh. Well, I mean, she totally knows, right? I mean, she has to know. 7:30 on my clock.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, you are free to go whenever you would like.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Nolop. I will call the City Council, Local Contract Review Board, and Town Center Development Agency meeting to order. Deputy Recorder Patton, please call roll.
Counselor Lube,
Here.
Counselor Anderson,
Here?
Mayor Snyder,
Here.
Youth Counselor Calderon,
Here. Here.
Council President Goodhouse,
Here.
Counselor Newton.
Here.
Okay. Please all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll mute yourselves. I'm going to mute myself, and we'll participate in the pledge.
It's a good looking flag.
Okay. Staff, any non-agenda items?
No, Mr. Mayor, there are no agenda items.
Okay.
There are agenda.
We'll move on to public comment. Written public comments were due by 4:30 p.m. today, and call-in questions will be taken via telephone by calling 503-966-4101 now. The call-in number is posted on the screen, and we will be getting to call-in members wishing to make comments in just a few minutes. So again, the call-in number's on the screen, 503-966-4101. Interim City Manager Nyland, do you have any follow-up to previous public comment?
No, Mr. Mayor, there's no follow-up.
Okay, and I think we have a new high school envoy with us. Caroline, are you ready to provide your report?
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, so as most of you guys probably know, Tigard started digitally on September 14th. All of our classes are online, taken through Google Hangouts, which is basically Zoom. So far this year, we had our senior sunrise and our welcome back assembly both virtually. We made videos that we sent out to the students. Some of our sports have started having socially distant like workouts and practices again. I know football started today, and they're all having masks and temperature checks and all that good stuff to stay safe. This last week was our homecoming week, so we had virtual spirit days. Students sent in pictures of themselves and the different themes to our Instagram, and we highlighted that on our story, as well as we had a virtual homecoming court, and we just made sashes for this year's nominees. We also have new spirit gear. Our theme is like one streak this year, because a streak is a group of tigers. And yeah, so orders are open now, and then pickup for that will be available on November 4th. Our Random Acts of Kindness and Activities Committee have been working on writing personal welcome emails to all 533 new freshmen this year, as well as making goodie bags for our teachers. And then coming up like later this month, we have the canned food drive in collaboration with Leadership and National Honor Society. We're still working with our district office to plan out like exactly how we're going to execute that so that we can collect cans in a way that's like safe and socially distant, but that will be October 21st through the 31st, and the proceeds of that will go to St. Vincent de Paul. And then on November 11th is Veterans Day. So in lieu of what we would normally have, which is our Veterans Day Assembly, we're working on handwriting letters to all the veterans in our community, as well as making a slideshow to thank them for their service. That's pretty much it, yeah.
Well, just a few things. It sounds like despite being virtual, there is a lot going on and a lot of interaction, maybe not in person, but I think everybody is working to get by. Thank you for the report out, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you so much.
All right, we will move on to our update from Police Chief McAlpine.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Chief Kathy McAlpine for the September dashboard. And just a reminder to our viewing audience that this report will be made available tomorrow on our transparency page. What I'm going to highlight, I think if Mr. Nolet puts the PowerPoint back up, is really under property crimes. In the unlawful taking of a motor vehicle, theft, which is, I'm going to talk about, is actually theft from vehicles, and then vandalism, mostly in our graffitis. We have seen a significant uptick in just stolen vehicles, many of which are unlocked, and surprisingly, keys are in the vehicle. So we've done a lot of public announcement trying to remind people of their due diligence. Same with entering into a motor vehicle for theft purposes. Again, we've seen a high uptick. And so again, it's just trying to educate our community on keeping their vehicles locked and their valuables in their house or in their trunk. And then the vandalism is more of our graffiti. I do want to note that in each of these categories, we have made arrests. Now, I can't tell you that they're responsible for all of those in their various categories, but I will say that due to COVID, we are only able to cite them, and I don't believe that that has been much of a deterrent. So we still see that uptick going on. And then the last one is, again, just monitoring our photo enforcement, and that is, again, the intersection speed is high again this year. And again, as we make this information public, I just want to remind those listening that just because we report out what we issue does not mean that they're resolved. There's many steps to this process, and we're reporting only the number of citations issued. There's obviously owners of their vehicles can say that that was not them. There's also the hearing process, and but I've already gotten inquiries as to people make an assumption that that equates to a certain amount of dollar amounts. And while the PD does not track that portion of this, I just want to remind those listening that this is just the first step of a whole process. And then some of the other things I'd like to touch on is we do have 4 recruits in our field training program now, 3 entry and 1 lateral. So we're excited about that. We do have 1 officer in the academy that just started in October. And then I have 2 chiefs interviews next week. So we are moving, although it feels like it's a slow, gradual process. And really the other note, first of all, Mayor, congratulations on the Metro Mayors Consortium. I'm excited, which means you and I will probably have some more robust conversations.
Yes.
So I look forward to that. And then just to remind you, it's a little bit early, but I just had a conversation for a planning event with St. Anthony's, and you know, in their parish and their school, they have about 10,000 people, and they would like to do a Reimagining Policing virtual chat on October 29th. So we just talked about what that might look like. And so as it gets a little closer, I'm hoping that any of you choose to join in and listen. We also have the 5th annual Building Bridges, which again will be virtual this year. So that means it's going to be in the evening time, and that is October 22nd. And as soon as you're allowed to register, I would encourage, and again, that will be about policing reform.
Will the event on October 29th be in the evening as well, or during the day?
I believe it'll be in the evening.
Okay. I think there's
Yeah, we just
another
have-
competing community event that night, but we'll maybe we can, the council can divide and conquer perhaps.
Yeah, it looks like the Just Compassion event is that evening.
Oh, very good. Okay. As we get a little closer, and we'll see if that event has already been written in stone, or if there's some adjustment to that as well. Like I said, we just had our planning meeting prior to council session tonight. So a lot of good outreach, a lot of good dialogue, a lot of people willing to listen and have some discussions, which they're encouraged. And unless there's any other questions, I know there's a lot more on this agenda tonight.
Well, Chief, I'll just make one point and then ask one quick question. I think it's also important to remind citizens that are looking at the citation volumes that we're not citing people for 1 or 2 miles an hour over the speed limit. It's more than 10 miles an hour over the speed limit. And I think that's important for people to understand the safety, the profound safety implications of what we're talking about. The other question the question I wanted to ask was about vandalism. You were describing that can look like lots of different things. So can you just give us some sort of flavor for what the dramatic increase in vandalism, what that's looking like? Is that all of automobiles, or is that just more general vandalism?
Well, there's a couple things. The vandalism to vehicles or thefts in there, but this vandalism that's really rising is graffiti. And that can be gang tagging, and it can be just tagging in and of itself. And to give an example, already we're at 93 so far this year, and in the last 5 previous years, the highest was 87 and 88. That was in 2015 and 18. So we're definitely ticking up, and I don't know if there are people who have things to say or exercising what they think is their Fourth Amendment right, or but we've actually caught people doing this and have cited them, but again, I'm not sure that citations are a deterrent right now.
Council President Goodhouse, you had a question or comment?
Yes, Chief, I was looking at the on social media and saw that there was a kind of uptick in catalytic converter thefts. And my curiosity on that was, I guess, for mine and then also for anyone watching or for residents, how do people really prevent that, or what do you recommend for people to kind of, I know probably lighting or things like that, but I mean, if someone's stealing that, how do you prevent those thefts?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That is back in fashion. As I say, those have been ebbs and flows where a lot of people can then turn those in and recycle them. So just knowing whether or not your car has a catalytic converter, and then also, yes, exactly, is can you do anything to put it in a more well-lit area, a little bit harder to get into. Again, we have made arrests, and we know based on the tools that they had on them that was not their first attempt. But again, we had to cite and release, so I'm assuming they are back out doing this in our neighborhoods and others as well. And we have sent out some social media posts on some things that they can do to look for and prevent. So that is probably our best tool, is to continue to educate our community on making it at least a little bit more difficult for these folks.
Thank you.
So vigilance is probably the best on that right now.
Yes, I mean we've all enjoyed a very safe and neighborhood, and we get lulled into complacency. And I think in this day and age, what we're seeing is people are taking advantage. They're coming into our neighborhoods and taking advantage of that complacency.
Any other comments or questions for the chief?
Mr. Mayor, this is Councilor Newton.
Councilor Newton.
Chief, I just wanted to say good job on getting the hiring moving. You know, this is kind of a rough time with COVID, and so candidates that you feel are going to be a good fit for our department and our community. So I'm glad to hear that. So thanks.
Well, I'd like to say woohoo, and we're making progress, but I'm sure as the next month or two I'm going to be announcing there'll be retirements. So for every 2 steps forward, we're going to have a couple steps backwards, and it'll look like we're just running in place for a while. But for this moment, we'll celebrate the positive direction.
Chief, I will add that there was a community member I was speaking with in the last couple of days who was just very appreciative of having you as our chief of police and how great of an addition to our community and our leadership team you've been. So I want to make sure you hear that. Councillor Lube, you had something?
Yeah, I just, based on the dashboard that was sent out, I was wondering if you could speak to a little bit more the de-escalation training that was received in September, because I know our community was really interested and that was a big piece of the lobby, and it looks like some of our officers have received some of that training. So if we could talk about it just a little bit, that would be great.
Sure. First, a couple things. Mayor, thank you very much for passing that along. I too feel equally blessed, so thank you. And for those First Amendment auditors listening, when I said graffiti was Fourth Amendment, I meant First Amendment, so I'm going to correct myself before I have a fan base do that. And lastly, but not least, is it's a Caliber Press 2-hour de-escalation training. I took it myself. I thought it was fantastic. It laid the groundwork. Again, one, just talking about that it's an end result. In and of itself is not a tool, but it is an end result. So everything that you do, there should be a framework of de-escalation in mind, that's how you want to end or resolve a conflict. And they just talk about your timing, location, distance, all of those things. And so I thought it was very well done. It was 2 hours with a test at the end. And I think it just builds that foundation until we can do the advanced course. That will not happen until after we go into probably phase 2 in this pandemic.
Thank you for that.
Yes, and be happy to share more about the content of that later if any of you are interested.
Thank you, Chief. We will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a Tigard Area Chamber of Commerce report out. Ms. Love, are you present? Excellent.
I am. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to give you brief overviews of what we have going on for the Chamber. Today and yesterday, we launched our 5th Leadership Tigard class. They met at the opening reception last night, and then they participated in SimSock today. So that's where we've been at all day. And then our Tigard Shining Stars Community Awards Gala is coming up on October 23rd, which is next Friday at 7 p.m. And if you would like to reserve your dinner or a VIP or VIP box, the deadline to register is October 18th, which is this coming Sunday. And then we have a lot of virtual networking events happening right now, so we encourage everyone to check out our events calendar. It's tigardchamber.org on our website. And then for the farmers market, we only have 2 Sundays left. I can't believe that we've already made it through this season this far. And so we encourage community members to come out and support. We still have a great group of vendors that are coming each Sunday, and should be a good, hopefully nice weather for the next 2 weeks. And then for downtown Tigard, in lieu of Trick or Treat Main Street, I know a lot of people have been waiting to hear information on this. We are hosting the Halloween in downtown Tigard, presented by John Goodhouse Independent Insurance Agency. It is going to be October 18th through November 1st. There's a few different aspects. There's a window decorating component, there's a scavenger hunt, there is selfie stations involved, and then there also is a goodie bag that will be distributed that is put on by downtown Tigard businesses that will be distributed through Pack with Pride to our TTSD families. So that's kind of an overview, and I'll send you some more information to your email. Any questions?
Excellent. Thank you, Jessica. Any questions? Okay. Thank you for that very thorough update. And for the public that's watching, we absolutely want to encourage participation in the safe Halloween event in downtown Tigard. So look for more details. Jessica, where should people look for more details if they're members of the public watching tonight?
You can check out our social media, so Explore Downtown Tigard Facebook page or Instagram. And then you can also check out exploredowntowntigard.com.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
All right, public comment is the next item on the agenda, written public comment. Deputy Recorder Patton, were there any written public comments?
Yes, we received one item from Erica Clark.
Okay, and this, just to summarize briefly, this is a comment from a fellow business owner about one of the current Tigard City Council candidates and her concern about his business not paying for some of the services that her business rendered. And this is related to council candidate Ben Edel. I'm not going to read any more of the detail, but that information is available in the public record. Deputy Recorder Patton, that was the only public comment, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Let's move on to phone-in public comment. Mr. Nullup, are there any callers that wish to make public comment tonight?
Mr. Mayor, there are not any callers at this time.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda, which is used for routine items, including council meeting calendars, appointments to boards and committees, and approval of contracts or intergovernmental agreements. Information on each item is available on the city's website and a packet for this meeting. These items may be enacted in one motion without separate discussion. Council members may request that an item be removed by motion for discussion and separate action. Tonight on the agenda, or on the consent agenda, there is an amendment to a HVAC maintenance and repair contract with a specific vendor. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Council President Goodhouse, I second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Deputy Recorder Patton, please take a roll call vote.
Councilor Lube?
Yes.
Councilor Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Snyder?
Yes.
Council President Goodhouse?
Yes.
And Councilor Newton?
Yes.
Okay, the consent agenda is adopted unanimously. So tonight, we have the distinct honor of having our city manager, who has served our city for the last 9 years, is attending her last city council meeting. And it was very difficult to slip this onto our council calendar in a way that that City Manager Wine would not be aware of it. In fact, she asked questions about this during agenda planning meetings, and I think some people may have had to make up some stories and or lie a little bit to allow this section and session to be a surprise. So City Manager Wine, we have a number of things that we would like to do to recognize your contributions to the city. And the first is, I would like to ask Mr. Nullup if there are any callers that would like to speak about Marty's accomplishments at the city.
Mr. Mayor, we do have some callers, and I will start passing them through.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, caller. You're
Hi,
on
this is
with
Margaret.
the City Council.
Hi, this is Margaret Doherty. Can you hear me?
We can, Representative Doherty. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you, thank you. Hey, Marty, I would like to thank you so much for leading our city into the 21st century. You've brought us innovative ideas that have benefited all of the citizens of Tigard. We've had great leaders that have come on board during your tenure, and a lot of that I think it has to do with you. And as a state rep and a citizen of Tigard, I thank you so much. It has been such an honor to work with you, to learn from you, and we'll miss you, but we wish you the best. And so we just want to say goodbye, and we will miss you. Thank you so much for what you've done.
I think we should have, if City Manager Wine is willing to turn her camera on, I would love to ask her to do so as we're doing this, but if you would rather not, that's okay too.
It's on. She's up.
I can
she's
see her,
on.
Mr.
Okay.
Mayor. Yeah, I can see her.
I've got my, I guess the new Teams is not, let me see if I can get my system functioning better. Okay, there she is. Mr. Nolip, do we have another caller?
We do. Good evening, Mayor and Council. John Cook here.
Hi,
Thank you
Mayor
for this
Cook.
opportunity to. Hello. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today. I would like to commend Ms. Wine on her 9 years of service to the City of Tigard in the role of City Manager. She's done an She's done an outstanding job for our city, our employees, our councilors, and our citizens. During her tenure, the city updated our tree code, expanded our boundaries, updated our development code, started performance audits, came up with a strategic plan, obtained award-winning results on our financial audit each year, and many other items. She was a mentor to many employees, had a great record of hiring outstanding department heads, and was a buffer between council and staff, as well as between council and council. For obtaining the role of president of the Oregon City County Managers Association shows that her peers highly respected her abilities as well. She's a great listener, absolutely ethical, and truly knowledgeable in so many aspects of the role of government. She was the best city manager a mayor could ever have. Thank you, Marty. We will miss you.
Thank you, Mayor Cook. Mr. Nolip, do we have another caller?
Hey, Marty, it's Debbie Mollahan with the Tigard Chamber. I just want to say thank you for all your partnership and collaboration. You helped me gain so much understanding and insight into city government. I so valued and appreciated our monthly exchanges of what the city and the chamber were each working on, sharing our challenges and our areas of collaboration. I particularly have valued your help in our Leadership Tigard Advisory Committee. You were part of the launching committee in 2016 and helped craft what Government Day would look like, as well as your continued advocacy among city staff. So in the last 4 years, over 23 city staff have completed Leadership Tigard, and in this year's class, we have another 5 enrolled. I've really appreciated your advice and counsel and wisdom on both the chamber and the farmers market and downtown Tigard as we navigated either challenging issues or just processes within the city and how to execute events or resolve those challenges. Finally, I've really appreciated your collaboration as we've set up forums on measures and issues, and your advice in developing and navigating relationships within city government, whether it was electeds or with staff. You will be so missed. You and I have worked together for over 9 years, and I wish you the utmost success in your role as a Monmouth city manager. Best wishes, Debbie.
Thank you, Debbie. Mr. Nolip, is there another caller?
Hey, this is Dan Murphy calling from the Broadway Rose Theater Company. And I just want to give a shout out to Marty Wine. You know, when Marty was first up for the job as city manager, somebody must have given her my name because she ended up calling me before she had accepted the job. And we chatted, and she called me out of the blue. I had no idea who this woman was, but we ended up chatting for almost an hour, and she was picking my brain about Tigard, and I was curious about her. And so I would like to think I had something to do with maybe Marty deciding to come to Tigard, so even if it's in my own head. But I also wanted to say that she has been an incredibly approachable city manager on so many levels, so I thank her for that. And I know her through the chamber, and I know her through various fundraising activities that I have been involved with over these 9 years, where she is always in the audience. And she has always been a supporter for so many local nonprofits that I really appreciate, including, of course, the Broadway Rose. And I got to know her even more as a Tigard Noontime Rotarian. She is, again, a patron of the arts, and she's a friend now. So I will miss her. I wish her luck in Monmouth. They're lucky to have her. She will definitely be missed. She's only an hour away, so the bottom line is I still expect to see her in my lobby. So best of luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Mr. Nullip, I believe that's the end of the callers that we had planned. Are there others that maybe have called in?
That is it at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to various members of the council. Councilor Lube.
Thank you. I wanted to especially thank City Manager Wine for all of her service that she's done for the city of Tigard and for the residents. We wouldn't be where we are today with so many different projects and just progressing forward without her leadership. And on a personal level, I mean, I was sort of thrown into local government last year in January when I was appointed with no knowledge, and City Manager Wine never made me feel stupid for my million questions. I always felt prepared, and she was always a listening ear to give me perspective and background. And so I really appreciate it. I wouldn't be the counselor I am today without your effort to get me up to speed. And so I just really wanted to thank you for your service, and I'm so excited for your new adventure. So I can't wait to hear about it.
Council President Goodhouse.
Yes, I wanted to share a quick story that kind of reflects the type of person Marty Wine is. Back before I even became on council, and I'm not sure if Marty remembers this story or not, but my wife came into the passport counter and had run into a snag with the process, and emailed for a suggestion of what maybe get done for the process. She thought maybe someone might read it or get back later. But within like that day, Marty reached out personally, talked to her, and heard about the issue, found a resolution, and that just kind of stood out to me, saying that we had a great city manager before I even came on, and someone that would reach out to a citizen, take their complaint seriously, and work on it. Just shows you the character of Marty. Great job she's done, and through the whole time she's been here, always just been great with representing the community, being at events. Every time I go to a conference or anywhere, raving reviews of how well that Marty had represented the city, has done a great job, and you'll be missed. Being a great representation of this city. Thank you for everything you did.
Councilor Anderson.
Well, I think I've always worked well with Marty. But the first time I attended a National League of Cities conference, I took a seminar entitled How to Work with Your City Manager. And this program is very basic counselor 101 stuff, but it soon turned out to be just a complaint session from counselors from all over the country and Oregon, saying that they can't work with their ego-driven city managers and they can't get anything done because it's so divisive. Well, I thought to myself, I'm in the wrong room because we don't have any of these problems. We have great communication and supports, and we get a lot done in Tigard. So it made me realize, how fortunate we are to have Marty in that seat, and all that we've accomplished with respect and a civil attitude and without any drama. So thank you, Marty, for making things easy for us.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson. Councilor Newton.
Okay, this is going to be hard for me, but I'm going to give it a go. So anyway, you heard Dan Murphy say that Marty called him out of the blue. I was the interim city manager before Marty came after Craig Prosser left, and a lot of people in the community asked me why I wasn't applying, and I said, well, two reasons. I'm a planner. I'm not a government budget person or a public finance person, and that's what the city needs right now. Plus, I'm thinking about retiring in 2 years. So we opened up the recruitment, and Marty impressed me because she was so prepared. She called me. None of the other candidates did. She asked me tons of questions. She did research. She asked me who to call in our community. And so when she came to the interview, she got to ride around the city with Dennis Kohlermeyer and I, and she asked very astute, well-researched questions. We were both really impressed with the preparation she'd done, and so that left a good impression on me. And I I said to her at the time that I thought she was the right fit for the time. And she took our, we were just coming out of the 2008 recession, and she took our budget challenges and addressed them, I thought, very creatively. She was, had a really good understanding of the fact that, money was tight, but she also approached the staff and the employees and the uneasiness they had in the situation with grace. And so I think a lot of people appreciated that. I guess the other thing that I'll say, and I don't want to talk forever, but y'all know I could, is that Marty always acknowledged as she was doing her work that you don't get things done without working with other people. That's the staff, that's the council, that's the community, the business community. She's well respected by her colleagues in the profession because she's very collegial with them. And she has been working with the Northwest Women Leadership Academy to help pass on some of that knowledge. So I learned a lot from her about being a partner. I will say that I miss the door jam sessions where we always talked about what was possible and the hunt for the perfect mac and cheese, right? So we're both big fans of mac and cheese. So I'm sad to see you go, but I'm really happy to set you off on your next adventure. So good luck, and we'll see you down the road.
So I will just say that Marty has served 3 mayors and countless city councilors and the entire Tigard community in an excellent way. And I think it's important for our community to realize where our city was when Marty came. I liken, if you can think of the city as a child, I think our city was about maybe a 9th grader when Marty came, and Marty has ushered the city very successfully into young adulthood, I would say. And that is, quite a feat in and of itself, and has been a wonderful partner to work with over many years. And I think I met Marty when I was first planning to run for city council. And I think we ended up having lunch, and I learned an immense amount of information from her, even though I'd lived in the community a long time and served as on the budget committee and the budget committee chair and as a reserve police officer and many other things. Marty had already grasped the essence of Tigard quickly and really helped lead the city through some very challenging times. And I'll leave it at that for a moment. Marty, did you have anything that you would like to share?
I will say that what has just been said in farewell, and I really appreciate. Oh my!
That was part of the cue for your family members.
Oh.
So where Tim, you need to come back in.
Okay. Wow.
I want them in the picture, of course.
That's so. As you can probably imagine, I didn't prepare anything in the way of words to say. Thanks, Tim, and thank you for the flowers, and thank you also for your kind words and your friendship and relationship and care for Tigard that you all have. And I've been so grateful to share it with you in the almost 9 years that I've been here. This job is not always rewarding, and it's not always, sometimes it's incredibly rewarding. And so I'm thankful to each of you for the time that you have given me to be able to work together. And I also believe that we've built a lot while we've been able to work together. So like I said, I didn't prepare anything or expect any of what you just said. And I'm thankful to each of you for being able to work together all this time. So that's all I have to say. And
thank you. We were mostly using that as a cue, so we weren't expecting necessarily a long speech, but
I didn't have anything. So
yeah,
I'm grateful. Thank you.
We have more to share. So we also have a proclamation before the council this evening. It's also a surprise to Marty. And this is a proclamation to declare October 16th Marty Wine Day. And I'm going to read the proclamation, and I'm going to read it in its entirety, and then the council will act on it. Whereas Marty Wine began her distinguished career with the city of Tigard as city manager in 2011, and whereas Marty has been a solid presence for staff and community leaders and consistently encouraged regional collaboration to address complex issues like homelessness, budget challenges, COVID-19 continuity of operations, and transportation priorities affecting our city. And whereas Marty's executive leadership team expressed their admiration for her skill and support as a sounding board, being a voice of calm with a thoughtful approach, her trust, compassion, community focus, skillful ability to unpack complex and challenging issues facing the city, her open-minded, diplomatic, and humble leadership. And whereas Marty provided leadership and advocacy throughout the community, serving on the board of directors of the Good Neighbor Center, the Washington County Cooperative Library Services Executive Board, and the Washington County Consolidated Communications Agency. For those listening at home, that's our 911 answering center. You may not know that. An exemplary service to the community as part of the Tigard Rotary. She's a leader throughout the city management profession by serving as president of the Oregon City County Management Association. And whereas she's exemplified true professionalism in her interactions with the city council and generously shared her deep bank of critical policy knowledge, always working for their success as community leaders. And whereas the full scope of Marty's talents and dedication were evident in her work with the city's strategic plan, city report card, successful public safety levy, the city's diversity, equity, and inclusion plan, the city's anti-racism action plan, and her professionalism and poise fostered relationship building with our partners at Lake Oswego during the construction of the Lake Oswego Tigard Water Partnership projects, which resulted in the successful delivery of the largest infrastructure project in Tigard's history, as a $129 million infrastructure project to deliver us permanently with 14 million gallons of water a day. That alone was a huge undertaking, and Marty and I spent probably hundreds of hours working on that together, to be honest. Sorry, I'm editorializing in the middle of the proclamation. That's probably not the best, but therefore we have a clean and secure water source for decades to come. And whereas Marty maintained a steady hand in the midst of demanding times and organizational change, guided by her loyalty to the needs of the city council, staff, and city residents. And whereas she brought keen insight, strategic thinking, and fierce focus to tackle the challenges of keeping the city running smoothly and effectively during a global pandemic, economic recession, and over the past 9 years, snow, flood, wind, and wildfire emergency events. And whereas she worked diligently with the city council to develop Tigard Aid, Tigard Cares, and Tigard Raft, which supported the most in need because of COVID-19 while managing the needs of staff who faced an uncertain work environment. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Jason B. Snyder, Mayor of City of Tigard, Oregon, do hereby proclaim October 16th, 2020 as Marty Wine Day. So, council, this is before us. Is there a motion?
I move for approval of the proclamation. Is that what we're doing?
I'll second that.
Thank you. That is what we're doing. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, please conduct a roll call vote.
Councilor Lube?
Enthusiastically, yes.
Councilor Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Snyder?
Absolutely.
Council President Goodhouse?
Yes.
Councilor Newton?
Yes.
I'm realizing that in all of this process, I did not give Youth Councilor Calderon an opportunity to speak. So that motion passes unanimously. Councilor Calderon, I'm very sorry. would you like to say a few words to the city manager?
Sure. Obviously, I haven't known you as long. I'm very sad that we didn't get to meet in person. I'm very sad I haven't really met any of you guys in person. But Marty, just from what I've heard from everyone just tonight, the level of professionalism and creativity you have, that's just insane. I would just like to say it's so amazing to hear all your accomplishments, and thank you so much for doing what you've done for the city of Tigard to make sure that my city has a great future. Our city.
Okay, so Marty, this has been our COVID-19 version of a send-off. I'm sorry we couldn't do it in person, but I appreciate you listening and participating. So thank you very much, and we will continue with our city business tonight.
Thank you, Mayor.
And I know you would expect nothing less from us.
Please do.
All right,
Thanks.
next item on the agenda is to consider a resolution to approve a new police contract for fiscal year 2020 to 2023. HR Director Bennett.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Talk about a tough act to follow. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I had a weird echo there for a moment. I am here tonight with Brandy Leos, my senior business partner. The two of us work together with a group of police lieutenant and commander to negotiate a contract with our police union. And I just am here to introduce Brandy, who will be speaking tonight about that process and give you an update on where our contract finalized, and then council would be able to vote on it. So Brandy Leos, if you're with us.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Brandy Leos. I'm a senior HR business partner here at the City of Tigard. And as part of my duties, I support the police department. So that includes sitting on the bargaining team. So I do have a presentation that I will pop up real quick. And I believe I have actually the wrong presentation. Mr. Nollup, can you help me load the correct presentation? Oh wait, never mind. It was just titled wrong on my slide. So that is in fact the wrong presentation. One moment.
Randy, let me know if you'd like to present.
Mr. Nollup, it seems to be going very slow, so one moment.
Okay. There we go.
Excellent. So again, I'm here to talk to you about the most recent bargaining update. As you may recall, we started bargaining with the Tigard Police Officers Association in February, and we bargained through July. During our negotiations in March, the COVID pandemic response started, and most of the employees went home, which made collective bargaining an interesting process. In May, the Tigard voters passed a local option levy in support of public safety. In August, we started the first of our 2 mediation sessions, which ended in September. Throughout the process, we met with council in an executive session to provide regular updates. And on September 10th, we reached tentative agreement, and I will go over the basics of that agreement here with you tonight. So the proposed agreement is a 3-year agreement that is retroactive back to July 1st, 2020 and runs through June 30th of 2023. I met with council in executive session to go over all of the changes on September 22nd, and then the Police Association met on September 25th and they voted to ratify this agreement. As for wages, In year one, so that's retroactive back to July 1st, the Tigard Police Officers Association will receive a 2.6% cost of living adjustment. In the second year, it's a flat 2.0 cost of living adjustment. And then in the third year, it'll be based on the consumer price index between 1 and 4%, depending on what the economy is doing at that time. In addition to the cost of living adjustments, there are some market adjustments, and this is to keep up with our labor market. They're incremental adjustments. So in the first year, it's a 0.5%. In the second year, mid-year, it'll be a 0.75%, and then mid-year of the third year, a 1.0% market adjustment. Some other adjustments to wages, we adjusted from a 7-step salary schedule to a 6-step schedule. This will help newer officers reach competitiveness in the market more quickly. So by their 5th year, they're earning similar to what other 5-year officers are earning in our area. And our goal is to maintain a fair market wage compared to similarly sized cities throughout the region. Some other economic changes, well, the first one, not really a change, but we're sticking with the current 90-10 cost share for healthcare premiums. So the city pays 90%. Members of the TPOA pay 10%, which is the same as the rest of the city employees. We increased the long-term disability benefits for people in this labor union, and we made updates to certain special assignment incentives, especially the K-9 officer program. Some other things we agreed to with the police union, we will convene a committee to discuss Senate Bill 1604, which requires that the city come up with a discipline matrix for police officers. So we actually have that first meeting scheduled. We increased travel time for court callback, recognizing that it takes a long time to get to Washington County Circuit Court out in Hillsborough. We added language to incorporate the Supreme Court decision to allow members to cancel their dues deductions if they so choose. We also incorporated language to cover the Oregon paid sick leave law and made gender neutrality adjustments throughout the agreement. So as with every collective bargaining agreement, this has a cost to it. In the current fiscal year, there will be roughly $288,000 in new spending. Over the life of the 3-year agreement, we're looking at roughly $1.7 million in new spending. However, it's important to keep in mind that those costs are calculated assuming that all current general and levy funded positions are filled. As we heard from the chief earlier tonight, it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back with filling those vacancies, because as we find excellent new officers, others retire or leave us for other reasons. So this is a maximum cost we expect related to this contract. There will be a review of the actual cost requirements, and we'll handle that before the police department comes with their second quarterly budget request. So the staff recommendation tonight is to adopt the resolution to ratify the new collective bargaining agreement and authorize City Manager Wine to sign that. And I am open for questions.
All right, council, any questions? I know we've gotten to ask a lot of questions through the process, just not in public, but Youth Councilor Calderon has not had an opportunity, but any other members of the council? Youth Councilor Calderon, any questions?
No, I'm okay. I read over the entire report. I'm not sure if that's the right word, the other day, but it looks quite good.
All right, council, is there a motion if there are not questions or comments?
Mayor, I have a quick comment.
Council President Goodhouse.
I just wanted to echo what you're saying. The council spent hours and hours on this in executive session, going through this, talking about this, and staff had gone through many hours. So I wanted to point out, a lot of times viewers may see this and think that we just made a quick decision or agreed on a quick contract, but this is something that went over months and months of a period of time. Council worked on a lot, staff, and I also want to give a hats off to staff and to the police officers as well. During COVID times, a lot of this was all done remotely. Mostly, it started I think in person and then went remotely. So it was also a challenge to do it. But there's a lot that goes into this process, and it's not something that's done quickly or easily. So I just wanted to let the public know that there a lot went to this and a lot of thought went into this on both sides. And thank you for all staff and the police department.
I'm glad that we were able to solve it in mediation as well. And in COVID times, this was very challenging. So thank you for those comments. Other questions or comments from the council? Or a motion?
I move to approve resolution number 20-48.
I second.
I second that. Oh.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded twice. City Recorder, please read the number and title of the resolution.
Resolution number 20-48, a resolution adopting a new collective bargaining agreement between the City of Tigard and the Tigard Police Officers Association, TPOA, and authorizing the city manager to sign.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilor Lube.
Yes.
Councilor Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Snyder.
Yes.
Council President Goodhouse.
Yes.
Councilor Newton.
Yes.
All right, resolution 20-48 passes unanimously. Thank you to both the staff team that was working on bargaining and to our entire police department and the Tigard Police Officers Association. Very happy that we can move forward jointly to continue protecting our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item number 7, which is an informational public hearing. Consider resolution approving the fiscal year 2021 first quarter budget supplemental. First thing I need to do is to open the public hearing. And anyone that wants to offer testimony will be allowed to do so. Written comments were due by 4:30 p.m. today, and those wishing to testify via phone can call 503-966-4101 to be put in the queue. Again, 503-966-4101 if you wish to make public comment. And with that, we'll go to the staff report. Mr. LaFrance and Senior Management Analyst King.
Give me a moment to bring up the presentation file. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and councilors. My name is Steve King, Senior Management Analyst from Finance and Information Services. Tonight, I'm here to present the 2021 fiscal year 2021 first quarter budget supplemental. Detailed descriptions and the financial impact are presented in the agenda item summary, but I will describe the key items in the following statement. One item to note is that we have a walk-on amendment, and which I will describe in the end. You should have the revised materials, including the amendment, from the City Recorder's Office. So jumping right in, first from the community development. Community development has 4 items. 2 of the items are carry forwards, the other 2 are new requirements. Of the new requirements, one notable item is the expansion of the Tiger Cares program for $1.9 million. These are supported by the federal and state grants. Next on city management. City management has 5 requests. 3 of them are consulting services requests, as you see on the screen. 4th request is the 1.0 FTE in the city manager's office. This requested management analyst position will provide the additional capacity to help implement several new and existing initiatives, including assisting the Public Safety Advisory Board. These new initiatives were unanticipated when the fiscal year 21 budget was prepared. Last item is the insurance premium increase, which was due to 2021 liability insurance premium final cost coming in higher than anticipated. Finance and Information Services. The main item here is the request for a payroll specialist in the Financial Operations Division. This, the performance audit done last year identified the payroll function to be a major risk factor in the city, at the city, as the city has only 1.0 FTE for the payroll function. In fiscal year 2021, city is projecting to have roughly 400 to 425 people working for the city. This number is including permanent staff, temporary, on-call positions. The current standard for the payroll function is 1 FTE for every 250 people, which means that the Tigard needs roughly 1.7 FTE for the payroll function workload. The remainder of 0.3 FTE will be spread on special projects, trainings, and miscellaneous time away from the payroll function. In addition, another item notable is the FIA is requesting the expand of the St. Vincent de Paul Water Customer Financial Assistance Program. Police. The police department has 3 requests. Two of the 3 items are carry forward items. One for purchases in the forfeiture fund, and the other for the police vehicle outfitting. The last request is the parking lot security upgrades. This is based on the recommendations from the CIS's parking lot security assessment, as well as the sensitive criminal justice data security concerns raised by the CJS audit. The primary scope includes installing fencing and automatic gates on the west side and south of the parking lot to enclose the city property from the Fano Creek Trail system. Public Works. The Public Works Department has 2 items. One is a request to increase the right-of-way mowing contract due to additional mowing locations, and the next is the carry forward for the High Tor Reservoir generator replacement. The delivery of the generator was delayed due to the manufacturing plant closures. CIP. As expected, majority of the requests in the supplemental budget are carry forwards amounting to $411,000, impacting 4 CIP systems. New requests are totaling $93,000, and the impacted projects are CIP 95063, Transportation System Plan Update for $48,000. This was due to the consultant contract coming in higher than anticipated. 95057, Fano Creek Trail Alignment Study. This was due to increase in internals for proper grant management. 92062, Cook Park Softball and Baseball Infield Replacement Project. This is the due to additional permitting requirement. Lastly, non-budgetary items. Both of them are from the central services, and the first is requesting to increase the digital communications coordinator by 0.05 FTE. With the expended hours, digital communications coordinator will expand our digital presence and growing the city's connections to the Latino community. In addition, the position will address the increased social media communications, including responding to more comments and responding to direct messages in a timely manner. The second request is the walk-on amendment item, which is requesting to increase the municipal judge by 0.40 FTE. In the FY21 budget, it assumed the presiding judge would continue as 0.25 FTE position, and pro tem judges would be utilized for any additional court hours. This allowed the flexibility to increase hours for arraignments and trials as the court began receiving additional photo enforcement cases. In July, court began receiving photo speed citations, and the caseload has increased over 500%. With COVID-19 continues, arraignments are being held by phone and trials are being held virtually. These methods have allowed significant number of cases to be processed during the pandemic. As we prepare for more online hearing options and eventually in-person hearings, the court would require more judicial time to process the workload. As a result, court is requesting authorization to increase the judge's position to 0.65 FTE. Overall, fiscal year 2021 first quarter budget supplemental will decrease the overall budget by roughly $200,000. The increase in the program expenditure budget is $3.2 million and is largely supported through the various federal and state grants, as well as the unanticipated beginning fund balance and contingency. This supplemental will increase the reserves of the city by $22,000. And that is the end of the prepared remarks, and staff is recommending to approve, recommending the approval of the resolution implementing the first quarter supplemental. Now, if you have any questions at this time, myself or department staff will be available to any questions you might have. Thank you.
So, council, I want to focus us, since we're in a public hearing, this should be questions, not comments or editorial on the relative content here. So, any questions for staff?
I have a question on the duplicate project that was in there. Just sort of, I guess, the impact that it's going to have on the CIP, and if there are other projects that are now going to be a part of it. It was just kind of a significant number, and so I'm just curious what's going to happen to the CIP with that, the duplicate item being removed.
So there are no CIP changes. This is just an accounting change where the system itself was entering a duplicate entry, so we had to back those out. No impacts to CIP.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Any other questions? Okay, Deputy City Recorder Patton, did we have any written testimony for this item?
We did not.
All right. Mr. Nolip, do we have any callers?
No callers at this time.
All right. I will close the public hearing with my fist on the table. And we will discuss and consider resolution number 20-49. So any further questions or comments? Well, now we can go to comments, sorry. Council?
Council President Goodhouse, I move to approve resolution number 20-49.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, please read the number and title of the resolution.
Resolution number 20-49, a resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2021 first quarter budget supplemental, including budget adjustments to Public Works, Policy and Administration, and Community Services.
City Recorder, roll call vote, please.
Councilor Lube?
Yes.
Councilor Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Snyder?
Yes.
Council President Goodhouse?
Yes.
And Councilor Newton?
Yes.
All right, resolution 20-49 is adopted unanimously. Thank you. The City Council will now convene as the Town Center Development Agency Board for the next two agenda items. So we are transitioning to the TCDA board meeting. First item is the Town Center Development Agency's informational public hearing, considering a resolution approving a first quarter TCDA budget supplemental. I will open the public hearing.
Is now exiting.
Anyone that wishes to offer testimony may. Written comments were due at 4:30 p.m. today, and those wishing to testify via phone can call 503-966-4101 and be put in the queue. Finance and Information Services Director LaFrance and Senior Management Analyst Kang. Staff presentation.
Good evening, Mr. TCDA Chair and board members. My name is Steve Kang, a Senior Management Analyst from Finance and Information Services. and I'm here to present fiscal year 2021 first quarter supplemental budget for TCDA. TCDA has one request. CIP 92059 Universal Plaza project is actually partially funded by Parks SDC fund, and this request is to recognize the transfer from Parks SDC to City Center Capital Improvement Fund. During the budget cycle, transfer out from the Parks SDC from the city side was entered, but not the transfers in from, to the TCDA's City Center Capital Improvement Fund. This entry will recognize the fund coming from City of Tigard to TCDA. This will increase the TCDA budget by $2 million and no impact to the reserve for the future expenditures. Staff is recommending the approval of the resolution implementing the first quarter supplemental. And if you have any questions, we're available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions right now of staff? All right, Deputy Recorder Patton, did we have any written testimony on this item?
We did not.
Mr. Nollup, any callers?
No callers, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I will close the public hearing. Council discussion and consideration of TCDA resolution number 20-03.
I move to approve TCDA resolution number 20-3.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, please read the number and title of the resolution.
TCDA resolution number 20-03, a resolution to adopt the fiscal year 2021 first quarter budget supplemental, including budget adjustments to Town Center Development Agency, TCDA, Urban Development.
And a roll call vote.
Director Lube.
Yes.
Director Anderson.
Yes.
Chair Snyder.
Yes.
Director Goodhouse.
Yes.
Director Newton.
Yes.
All right, TCDA resolution 20-03 is adopted unanimously. Thank you. Mr. Kang, thank you very much. And we will move on to item number 9 on the agenda, which we remain as the Town Center Development Agency Universal Plaza project update. Mr. Fairley.
Good evening, Chair Snyder and the directors of the TCDA. My name is Sean Farley, Redevelopment Project Manager. I'm going to bring the PowerPoint up here. Bear with me for a moment. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Great. So we've got an exciting presentation here for you tonight, updating you on the Universal Plaza. We have about a 40-minute presentation followed by some Q&A. The last time we came before you was at the end of February, where the first design contract was approved. We were scheduled to have our kickoff meeting the week of the COVID shutdown, so caused us to recalibrate the project. But we've recalibrated and we're moving ahead. So first wanted to introduce the team. Top row there are city staff, and you'll be hearing from Kenny Asher and Lauren Scott in a little bit. And also on that top row is our project manager and owner's rep from Shields, Oblitz, Johnson, Vanessa Robinson. The second row there is our landscape architect consultants, Rios, and Peter Emerson, the designer project lead, will be speaking with you a little bit later. And then the last row is the sub-consultants for the project, and the Alicia Sullivan of Art Design Situation will be, you'll be hearing from her in a little bit. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kenny Asher.
Good evening, members of the board and Chair Snyder. We're going to start with the big idea, and this has come up. why is this Universal Plaza? Why Universal? And I just wanted to take a couple of minutes to explain that. Maybe it's not obvious. But I think one good way to understand this is to think back many years ago now on the Tigard Heritage Trail project. Before the Heritage Trail was the Tigard Heritage Trail, I don't know if you know this, but it was the Tigard Street Trail, and the big idea there was just to lay down an asphalt path, which would have been nice, but recent history shows that project has really come to life around this concept, this idea that more than a path, the opportunity there was to celebrate Tigard's heritage. And when we put those two ideas together, what is now the Tigard Heritage Trail really blossomed into life. And you can see what's out there now, and people can learn, and that idea can develop over time. Well, with Universal Plaza, it's such an important public space. It may end up being the most important public space in the city for generations to come. It needs and needed an idea. What are we trying to accomplish here? We have a kind of a mission statement for the project. It's on this slide. You know, it's a place for everybody, a community gathering spot in the heart of downtown that'll celebrate our shared humanity and our one shared planet. You know, if you think about this place being Tigard's living room for the next 100 years, and that's how we're thinking about it, it really raises the question, what are we trying to do in the city over the next century? And that's not hard for us. We know what we're trying to do. You know what we're trying to do. We're trying to be an equitable community that's walkable and healthy and accessible for everyone. And you all know that. But why Universal? Well, those qualities in that vision statement that you recently adopted and that we've been working on for years, being accessible, being for everybody, being healthy and walkable, these are all qualities that are universally desirable and should be universally enjoyed. All we're trying to do here is to make a place that feels like it belongs to everybody in the community, no matter who you are or where you're coming from or what your background is. And that's where the universal concept began. But there's another really important thing about it, and that is this other critical thing that's in this new strategic plan, and it has to do with climate change, and it has to do with recognizing that the world that we rely on needs to be taken care of. And part of what we want to be able to do in this plaza is celebrate and teach the elements of water and sunshine and fire and, you know, wind and earth, these universal elements that make our world and our one shared planet. In fact, this logo that you're looking at is built from this idea. Those are four, I don't know what to call them, icons. They represent wind and sun and fire and water. And they are disparate, but they are coming together into a harmonious whole. And that's the concept that is universal, and that's what's behind the project, not just the logo, but that's what's behind the plaza design effort, and hopefully it'll come to life when we get it designed and built. And Lauren has more to share about the process that we're using, which incorporates all of these same values.
Thanks, Kenny. Sean, next slide, please.
Or back one.
Perfect. Thanks, Sean. So with the theme of universality in mind, the project team took a unique approach to engagement. Instead of assembling a traditional community advisory group made up of just a few community members, we instead decided to extend the opportunity to all members of our community. We incorporated 3 new strategies for a more equitable engagement process. 1, we chose to leave the opportunity to become a design advisor open throughout the design process, allowing more community members to join at any stage of the process and have just as much input as someone who is on a standard advisory committee. 2, we let the committee choose the hours they participate, the amount of time they want to dedicate to the process, and the amount of input they want to provide, instead of having them work around a normal traditional committee schedule. 3, we carefully and intentionally advocated for participation from all members of our community with a focus on those rarely heard from and those who have been traditionally underserved. The image on this slide is of our Design Advisory Self-Response Questionnaire. It not only serves as inspiration for the kind of participation we're seeking, but also sets an expectation that we're committed to hearing from a variety of community members. For me, it's been particularly rewarding seeing how many community members reach out and self-identify. In the write-in option, which you can see at the bottom right-hand corner, it's been particularly fascinating to get to hear from our constituents exactly what makes them special and unique. As of today, we have 49 design advisors registered, coming from a variety of backgrounds, including many of whom are new to this public process. Sean, next slide, please. So, how are we engaging with our design advisors and making sure that their input directly relates to the design of this plaza? We've created 3 design advisories, as we're calling them, the first weekend of October, the first weekend of December, and then March of next year. They consist of an on-site engagement experience that allows design advisors to interact with the site and respond to prompts and questions in real time, a digital forum that acts as a small focus group and offers the opportunity to dig deeper on their thoughts, and then another opportunity for general input through a series of engagement tools, including ideas generators, surveys, quick polls, for people that are unable to participate in other ways, such as on-site or in digital forums. Next slide, please. So, based on that timeline I just shared, you'll note that we've completed our first engagement experience last weekend. We're delighted to find that our strategy for the engagement seems to be working so far. Out of the 45 people at the time that were signed up to be a design advisor, 25 people filled out our on-site survey, 16 attended our digital forum, and 13 chose to correspond directly with me. Some people chose to only engage in the process one of those ways, while others chose to engage in 2 or all 3 of the options provided to them. You'll notice that the number of design advisors has grown as people continue to become more aware and involved in this project. Next slide, please, Sean. In addition to becoming a design advisor, the community also has other ways to engage with us. This is a summary of the visitor traffic to the Your Tigard Universal Plaza engagement page. This engagement page features more information about the project, including 4 videos, which include the council's thank you to design advisors, which thank you very much for making, a project introduction video, 2 time-lapse videos, one of the building demolition and the mural painting. In the past 2 months, almost 950 people visited this project page, learning more about the project and the city's process. 315 of those viewed a video, viewed community members' ideas, or looked at other input. 123 people chose to directly participate in this project, either becoming a design advisor, submitting a haiku to be put up in lights. Thank you, Mayor Snyder, I saw yours up there. Responded to a survey question, or contributed to a design idea for the plaza. These are really big numbers. These are really big numbers for Tigard and for this project in general. And it just shows that the community is interested in this project, and we hope to continue this momentum and build upon it in the coming months with more site activation, which Alicia will speak to. But first, let's hear from Peter.
Hello, good evening, everybody. Some of you have met me before. My name is Peter Emerson. I'm a landscape architect and studio director at Rios. We are a design house that is based in Los Angeles, California, although we do have a small Portland office that is taking hold, and so we're happy to be in these 2 places. We work together with clients to realize projects that are unique to the place. One of the things that we really pride ourselves on is that you can look at one of our projects and not know it was us that designed it. That's a really critical part of our design ethos. We work, oh, Sean, do you mind flipping to the next slide? So how we work across all disciplines, from product design to interior design, urban planning, architecture, landscape architecture. And the last one really is at the heart of what we love to do, which is to create places for people, public places for people, places to gather, places for the community. And so at the heart of what we're doing is that is an approach that really aims to realize that. The other thing is that the design intent and execution for each project has to be unique to the client and the place. And we've had such a great time since we kicked off on the infamous second week of March. We've had such a great time learning about Tigard and learning about the site and the history of the vision for the site. It's an amazing team on the city side. We're just really, really excited to be a part of this process with you all. So as you know, the project approach, and Sean, I think you can skip ahead one or two slides. The project approach was intended, before we were ever brought on, was intended to generate interest and enthusiasm about the future of this place in downtown Tigard. And one of our proposals coming in to this project was to take down the building immediately, to open up the site, to make it accessible to the community, and build excitement for the future possibilities here. And since March, we've done that. And that really has resulted in some pretty exciting ideas that Alicia Sullivan will get into in a little bit more detail here. But the one thing we really want to emphasize is that we're building enthusiasm for the future of this place. We want this to be a beacon of change. We want to highlight the possibilities for a 2-acre open space in the heart of downtown. And we just want to generate a lot of enthusiasm for this project. So with that, I'm going to let Alicia Sullivan talk about some of the exciting things we've had going on and that's underway.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, so I am Alicia Sullivan of Art Design Situation. And as you all know, we had a lot of other plans for the activation of this space pre-COVID and have had to pivot. And as Peter mentioned, instead of leaving the site blank, the city decided to take this unique approach of activating the site prior to the final design. These activations, which really are temporary art installations and furniture elements and things of that nature, will really foster this connection to the community, creativity, and a sense of place, we hope. So this photo here that you see is a rendering of all of the things once they're all on site that you'll be able to explore. Next slide, please, Sean. So the goals of this process and the purpose of these activations really, as Peter mentioned, to build community excitement and really awareness for the upcoming plaza. We want people to come and really safely experience the site on their own terms, on their own time, at their leisure. So the elements that are on the site as well will provide insight for Peter and his team at Rios to come up with the final design by understanding the way people really move through and engage with the space. So some of these elements are actually testing certain things like flow and scale and things of that nature. So we hope this space will raise awareness of this new plaza site and really create a playful experience for the city and the residents of Tigard. We're working to connect and collaborate with community groups in the area, local businesses. We're working with B&B Printing right next door. Pike Awnings is a key fabricator for one of the pieces. And in this photo, you see Razier Roshan, who painted the giant mural that many of you hopefully have seen down there. And she is a local artist and a member of the Tigard Arts Council. So those are some of our collaborators, and we're really excited to be working with local talent as well as bringing ideas from further afield into the project. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thanks. So over the coming months, you're going to see the site really come alive with art installations for people in the community to explore and safely experience. As I mentioned, the ground mural is a 34,000 square foot mural painted on the ground. That came in August. So many of these installations have been really carefully considered as we have pivoted due to the pandemic to offer the public safe and socially distant ways to explore the site. So keeping that in mind as we move forward. The Community Haiku Project, as was mentioned earlier, is a collaborative piece that really reflects back the words and sentiments of the community members and what people are going through at this time, considering the situation we find ourselves in. And that closes on October 15th. So if you haven't yet submitted, there's still time. It's not too late. We have a musical bench piece, which is actually a piece in a public art collection that's been commissioned by Tualatin Valley Creates, and we get to host the piece. This is going to be a bench that you can actually touch and play and make sound with by local artist Jill Torberson, who is from Portland, and she is a metalsmith and welder. So that's a really exciting thing. After it's on the Universal Plaza site, it's going to go on to live on Main Street. So that'll have a longer life, which is a fun element. And then the upper left photo here is a test of the Apple Box benches that we're having made by fabricator Asami Morita. So those are actually movable seats. So you could theoretically go and meet up with your neighbors and sit socially distant and move the chairs and the benches to where you'd like to be. So that's a interactive, fun element that we hope we will be able to understand how people move around the site and where they want to sit through that. Next slide, please. Thanks. We have a lot of upcoming things. So one of the really exciting pieces is called Beacon by David Buckley Borden, and it's really a collaboration between David Buckley Borden and the Rios team. You can see a little sneak peek of that down at the bottom left in this slide. This is going to be a really incredible temporary piece that is truly a beacon for the site, and I think it will be quite iconic. David Buckley Borden is from the East Coast, but has recently relocated to Eugene, and is quite a well-known artist out there. And I'm sure we will see his work popping up in the public sphere in the coming years. So that's a really exciting thing to feature in this type of space. Twinkle trees, which are self-evident in the photo. Joshua Sales is the artist. These are fabricated in Portland, and they're trees that are life-size trees. We're going to have 16-foot trees that are just covered in LED lights, and they're glorious and really engaging, and they'll be on site from December until the end of January. And then we have an art installation by PSU architecture students. So they're going to actually respond to a number of prompts as part of their curriculum, and make an installation that will be on site as a mobile placemaking unit. And we're excited to learn what that will mean. They'll be receiving community feedback at the December advisory session as part of the piece. So yet another collaboration with Portland State University for that one. And then another part that's a key element of this is a lot of video and photo documentation. We are working with a local videographer, Portland videographer, who is going to be putting together a lot of digital collateral so people can also experience the site or understand at least what's going on there digitally in the comfort of their own homes. And that was an important element due to the pandemic situation as well. So we hope you'll come and check it out, and it's going to get really full and exciting through the end of the year. Thanks.
Before we move on, Sean, I just want to emphasize the importance of activation on this site. We know that this place has a really important future in downtown Tigard, but we also know that there isn't the amount of traffic, like local foot traffic, past the site to just generate activity on its own. And so we're being very intentional about generating interest in this site, in this project. And so all of these ideas really are intended to cement this place as an important public realm at the heart of this community. So I just want to emphasize that before we move on. So in the last month,
Peter, will Alicia be staying on so we can ask questions of her later?
Alicia, can you stay on so we can ask?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, Sean, next slide, please. So as in the last 5 weeks, we've just started the conceptual design process in conjunction with the outreach that Lauren spoke about. And some of this has to do with exploring the community, the context, the edges of the site, the geology, you know, the features of the landscape, such as the floodplain, walking distance to the site as illustrated in this left diagram, or, you know, the community parking capacity nearby as illustrated in the diagram on the right. And so we start through data gathering and exploration, and we continue through community engagement. And that's just been a really exciting part of this process, and excited to talk a little bit more about that when we get there in a minute. Sean, can we go to the next one? Along with those physical characteristics adjacent to the site in the context of the community, we look at things like how much sun does the site get, as illustrated in the diagrams at the top. You know, winter's probably the most important month to really care about there, and what we learned from studies like this is that that area down near Fano Creek is actually the brightest location in the winter. We're also utilizing a pretty large site for downtown. 2 acres has a big capacity, and so we know it doesn't want to all be hardscape, and it doesn't want to all be softscape, and so we're looking for the right balance. And part of that exploration relies on testing different scenarios about how many people can gather, how many market stalls can you set up, what kind of density can you look at when those things are there, what sort of temporary activities like a winter ice skating rink can fit on the site, and how would they get located. And so we look at all of those things generally before we ever put pen to paper. And it's important for us especially to understand scale. So we've been through, you know, I don't know, maybe 15 scale comparisons with comparable spaces in and around Portland, and also projects that we've completed, because we have a really strong frame of reference for what that means when we design a space. For reference, the site is about almost exactly the size of a square block in downtown Portland. So Jameson Square or the Ira Keller Fountain, those are all comparable sized sites to this one. So they are not, this isn't a small site, and I think we need to explore ways to design it where there are a lot of different experiences that can be had there. Sean, let's progress to the next one. And as we begin the design process, we keep reminding ourselves of all the work that's already been done. And that includes the public space, public life study that preceded our work with you all, and really always checking back on these goals and design drivers. You know, Kenny, I think, summarized this pretty well earlier, but you can see her on the left. These are things that we refer back to, and we will keep referring back to as we make decisions about the future of this place. There are elements to designing a public open space, especially in this context and in this climate, that we consider universal DNA to making great places. And some of those are illustrated here in a variety of ways. One that we know there's a lot of excitement about in the community is this interactive water feature, or splash pad, and we're super excited to be working with Jim Garland of Fluidity, very well known and creative and exciting water feature designer. We're having our first workshop with him tomorrow, in fact. So we're super excited to start to put pen to paper there. The connection to nature we've heard and we know is super important on this site. So we have an interesting cross-section where on one side we've got Burnham Street, which is our connection to Main Street, and it's, you know, where the downtown will develop and there will be more activity there over time. And then we've got Fano Creek, which between the two, there's just this gentle slope that takes you down towards Fano Creek, and it's really optimal view shed, and it's a very different experience on Burnham than it is at Fano Creek. And so we want to engage with that relationship with Fano Creek, and so we're looking at a variety of ways to do that. In a climate like you all have, overhead canopy for, you know, some dry space in winter is super important, so we're exploring the possibilities there, and also to provide shade in the summertime. One thing that we're just starting to consider is whether that wants to be the, you know, community front porch, complete with porch swings, so you can watch the activity in the place, really take it in and be a spectator to all the different activities that might go on here. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a big site. 2 acres is pretty large for a community of this size. So we're looking at ways in which we can have an event space that isn't all hardscape. And so we've worked on projects like this in the past where we have a very high use turf profile. We know how to build those so that the turf is resilient, but we want to explore the possibility of having an event lawn in conjunction with plaza space so that we can really break down the scale of it, make it a little bit more hospitable on a day-to-day basis, but still allow for those bigger activities that we all want to see occur here. And on the right side here, we are exploring different ways of configuring either an expansion to the market or a relocation of the market or a different type of festival, or existing events that you're currently doing on a seasonal basis. So we're looking at all those things. These are the elements that we think are super important to make a great place. And so as you see concepts develop, you'll see each one of these in each concept. Next slide. Some of the unique characteristics we're starting to identify for different arrangements of a possible universal plaza is that maybe the site is broken down in slightly different ways. And so on the left here, we have this idea about that we're calling community array, which would consist of a gradient of experiences from Burnham Street to Fano Creek, kind of breaking down the site into quadrants or thirds. And that would really transition from town to nature, and it would provide a set of distinctive points of view. So in one place you might have a ton of activity, water feature, kids playing, families, and another place you might have people sitting by the floodplain reading a book, and those things can be compatible. The second concept that we're starting to consider, we're calling downtown fabric. This one has a lot, we're thinking this one has a lot more stitched circulation, maybe more distinctive zones, and shifting the kind of harder or more flexible space to the center of the site. And the third idea that we're just starting to consider, we're calling Fano Embrace. And while we have 4 sides to the site, we're thinking of it as 2 edges. So the town edge, which would be Burnham, and a future alley, which is consistent with every scheme we'll consider. That is a response to the downtown connectivity plan that was done a while back. And then really expanding the edge of Fano to really embrace the site, hence the name. And in this one, we're thinking of it as an edge experience where you can loop around the entire site and have a variety of experiences around the edges, and then also have a central experience, which might be more appropriate for larger gatherings and events and activities. we're starting to explore the character of what that means. And if we go to the next slide, Sean, you can see here a compilation of images that we're considering as references for the first concept. And this is a combination of projects we've worked on, a combination of projects Jim Garland has worked on, such as the one at the center on the bottom there, and projects that we think are inspiring, such as the structure at the top left. We really want to consider materials very carefully. We don't think that this is, you know, necessarily a place for granite. It might be a place for wood and stone. And so we're just beginning to really explore all of that. Again, we think it's super important to allow for flexible, large-scale events. So what you see at the top right here is actually LA Live. And this is a big plaza, and it accommodates a lot of people. But it's framed with these intimate spaces for people to gather and sit on a day-to-day basis. So it's serving that dual purpose, both big events and the day-to-day stuff. So we're going to really consider that carefully. If we go to the next slide. For this stitched experience, you know, we're just putting together some ideas about how that might take form. So at the top left, you can see these reclining bench swings that really provide a place of leisure. We're looking at the vernacular of shade and rain canopies in the Northwest and are inspired by some of the things we're finding. The image, the third to the right image at the top is a shade structure that we built for the Hollywood Bowl, which is actually inspired by a very old kind of rustic shade structure, not too dissimilar from the one to the left of that, but we've reinterpreted it as you know, a contemporary space. And then just thinking too about, you know, how does the site engage with the wetlands or the floodplain there? And, you know, we don't need anything quite as big as what's shown on the bottom right, but thinking about how people engage with that, super important to us. Finally here, you know, this is again a combination of our projects and other people's, but we're thinking too about the tone and the warmth and what the materials are before a shape ever comes together. So I want to touch just before I conclude here, if we go ahead to the next slide, I want to touch on what Lauren was describing, this on-site engagement. And our next steps rely super heavily on this community engagement and the feedback that we're getting. And I have to say, we were worried in March about how to execute this. And we were worried in April. And we talked a lot about how to do this safely and still get enough out of it that we could be confident moving forward with the design. And so we actually were incredibly surprised. We were optimistic, but then really pleasantly surprised that this worked out so well. If we go to the next slide, people entered information in real time on the site at a variety of locations. And some of the questions were pretty repetitive. We wanted to know how they felt, whether they would feel safe letting kids play in that location, whether they thought it was an appropriate place for you know, a water feature, things like that. And so people started answering the questions near Burnham Street, and we heard a lot of, yeah, this is a great location. But as people moved towards Fano Creek, the responses just got more excited and more enthusiastic. And so we're really learning from this feedback. And I've been to a lot of public engagement meetings, and I've conducted a lot of these, and I will say I've never been to one where every single person had a voice. And our meeting last week on Wednesday evening resulted in everybody being able to have a moment or a few minutes to talk about the future of this place. And often it's, a few people that are more outspoken that speak up, but this forum really resulted in everybody being able to speak. We broke it down into smaller groups with moderators, and that feedback is just invaluable. So we're really excited to continue this process and happy to give this update.
So I'm going to close things out here talking about the schedule. And as you can see, there's a lot of moving parts here, and we're happy that we have SOJ to help us shepherd all these different activities that are going on there. We're also happy to have Mark McKnight from Parks to be at the table there with us and remind us, about things like maintenance of different design features, so we can keep that top of mind. So I'm going to move to a schedule that people can actually read here. And as has been mentioned, we're in the middle of the concept design phase. I just had the site experience last week, and we'll be moving into schematic design. November, we'll be coming back to council for a contract amendment to get some technical sub-consultants going on the project. And then design development and construction documents in the first half of 2021, along with a couple of site experiences in December and March. And that would move into bidding and going into construction in early 2022. So thank you to all the presenters, and we are happy to answer questions.
All right. Youth Councilor Calderon, questions or comments?
Not really a question, but more on the comment side. I was actually just driving by where Universal Plaza was just last week, and I was driving with my mom, and she was like, "Oh, that's where it's going to be." And she did, like, the awkward look outside the car look, and she was super excited to be there and just see where it's going to be. And I can already say that my family especially is very excited about Universal Plaza. I'm personally devastated by the fact that I might be at college by the time there's the grand opening, but Universal Plaza looks like it's going to be fantastic. I'm so excited to see what happens there, and especially if there's a splash pad, I know that people will have a great time.
Well, this will just make sure that you want to move back to Tigard when you're done with college.
Of course.
All right, Councilor Lube.
No, I don't have any questions. I was lucky enough to see a version of this yesterday at Prab, and it's really exciting to see all of the different potential opportunities and different ways that these elements can be incorporated, and just really, that it can become this really cool gathering space for Tigard, and just so much potential and possibilities. So it's just really great to see all of it. Thank you.
Council President Goodhouse.
Yes. Could we take it back down to so we can all see faces again? Yeah, great presentation, exciting for the potential and all that's coming on it. Just a couple of thoughts. One, with the current Rotary Plaza, I know one dilemma I've heard from the farmers market is getting vehicles in and out. And so I think one consideration might be for the design of the new plaza is even though we're trying to get a splash pad in there, get some cover, get some different isolated spaces in there, also for bigger events or for farmers market, make it so it's accessible for trucks or bigger trucks to get in there, even if it were something where we had a stage and we had some kind of a concert going on, to keep that in mind for the design, to make sure that we could get vehicles in and out of there. Things that were installed can either be removed, or there's clear paths to get in and out for vehicles, because that's going to be the one big thing if we're going to use that. Really depends what use. I mean, it's going to be more just for a hangout area, that's different, but if we're going to plan on doing bigger events, we need to be able to get trucks in and out of there easily, and not have a lot of either boxes or lampposts or overhead stuff that might be ran into. And then the other question was just, you know, the outreach has been great, but what, you know, any thoughts of what we can do to get some more outreach? I think there was last week, and I was down in downtown Tigard and out eating in front of a beach hut, and some people were walking by that come down all the time downtown, but they hadn't really seen or gone by the Universal Plaza, but we're excited to hear about the ideas and so forth. So any thoughts about additional ways to outreach, or I guess maybe organically it'll grow as well?
Well, I can speak quickly to that, and Lauren may have more to fill in behind me. And then Peter maybe can just make a quick mention of Rios's experience planning for events and festivals. But I think, you know, if you think about what Alicia described, all of the installations that are coming, the sculpture, the twinkle trees this winter, I mean, we're going to continue to do the things we've been doing, which is Lauren's job, and she's doing a great job drawing people to the project. But man, once those actual physical art pieces show up on the site, they are going to be spectacular, and I think that's going to drive more folks. Lauren, do you have more to say about that?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit more about that. So we're talking about when we're going to open up the plaza. It's going to be, the fencing is going to come down and people are going to actually be able to explore it with COVID protocols in place. And so that's going to come at the end of November. And like Kenny's saying, as the installations and the art installations and the activations ramp up, so is our promotion of it. The timing of the December on-site experience is right around the same time as the tree lighting downtown. So I'm hoping to work with the TDA and make sure that we can do something in conjunction that gets people to the site safely. And then we also have a couple Tigard Life ads coming up that's going to draw people to the space, both one that's hitting, I'm looking at my date, people's mailboxes on Thursday, and then again in December. So we do have a lot of different ways we're planning on promoting this and promoting it and pushing it out in the next couple months as we get more activations in there.
Great. And just for clarification, are we going to still keeping input on through that? So after we get, okay, great. So that'd be a great way to get more organic feedback. Thank you. And then we have a comment about the vehicles or trucks, or I think you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say definitely. We will definitely consider that, and already are thinking along those lines. And just to tag on to what Kenny mentioned and Lauren mentioned, you know, for the first meeting and the first set of engagement activities, I think we're pretty excited, and I think that is going to build a lot when these installations get going in November here in early December. I think you're going to be really surprised.
Councillor Anderson.
Well, no questions. Just a comment. We've obviously chosen a very thoughtful professional team, and it's good to hear our first reports. I think the wood crate seating is very clever, and I haven't been down there yet, so I will make it a point to get down there this week.
Councillor Newton.
Thank you. Yes, I was enthused when we interviewed all the firms. When was that, Mr. Asher? I don't know, a year ago or something.
Last December.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And the thing that stood out about this firm was exactly the kind of thing you're seeing this evening. I was really enthused about the ideas they had to bring things to the site, to get people in the community engaged, going down there, providing feedback, giving their thoughts about what was important to them in the space. And I was a little bit concerned with COVID, but I got to tell you, I think there's going to be a lot of kids wanting to go down and look at twinkly lights. So, you know, there's going to be things that are going to intrigue folks along the way. So I'm really pleased that you were able to do a lot of the things that you talked about doing when we originally interviewed you. And that gives people the opportunity to get engaged before we've even done much on the site. So I'm glad that it seems to be working out. Thanks. And I'm going down to see the twinkly lights as soon as you turn them on.
All right. Councillor Lube, you will too? you're going down, and Amelia. Okay. So, Lauren, I just need, you kind of referenced my haiku, I think, and I personally think it's terrible. So I just want to, I did the best I can, but that is not how my brain works. In fact, listening to Peter describe what what their team is going through and the way they're thinking, that is just not how my brain thinks. So neither is writing haikus, but I did what I could. Couple other questions. Alicia, I was curious to know, you were describing as an example how how you all will track how like the movable seating is being used and where it's being moved. I'm just curious how you're tracking that, or how you will track it. Is there like a camera that's watching this all the time, or what's going on? There is. Okay.
There is, yes, and I remembered that I forgot to mention that. We have a camera mounted on top of the B&B rooftop right next door, and so we've been able to watch the site. We watched the building demolition and the mural going in, and we can watch people moving around. It'll be marked that people are being recorded, but it's more informational than anything else. So it's a pretty fun element.
Interesting. Okay, that's fascinating. I'll be very curious to hear how some of that works out. My last question, then maybe for Mr. Asher, I know that the working name of this certainly is Universal Plaza. In my mind, I don't feel like that's its permanent name, but I guess I want to check that assumption, and maybe for the community and the rest of the council to kind of hear what the official thinking is on that.
Well, if that's directed to me to start, I'll say that it is, of course, I don't need to tell you this, it is absolutely the council's purview to name public spaces. And you may decide that there is a better name for this plaza, and that day may come. We're aware of that. But what I would also tell you is that having Universal Plaza be the name and the theme, as I tried to describe, has been so helpful to bring coherence to this very large place, which doesn't have much of an identity. So it's been really helpful. And it has given us a vision and a common vocabulary. And I think it's helpful with the community outreach and engagement as well. And so it's probably going to gain some purchase. I think it already has, but that doesn't mean that it's here forever. And if you or a future council decides that there is a better name, we will send it off. We'll give it a nice farewell.
I mean, I was just curious, and I think it's an important thing to just be aware of now, and think about. And as we, it's probably going to be like a child when we see it, fully informed, it'll be clear to us what it ought to be. I mean, I'm thinking that, and maybe Universal Plaza will be the right name. I don't know. It sounds like the at least Mr. Asher, from your perspective, it's got some usefulness right now, and maybe it'll stick. Is that the best way to summarize that?
It absolutely does. Yeah.
Okay. Council President Goodhouse, did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, one thing I forgot, and it kind of got brought up already. I know that during the demolition, I think the webcam that's on top of the building has been live. Is that going to continue to be a live stream that residents can access either on social media, or are we going to continue to push that so people can jump on? I'm thinking, for just more people checking it out, but also with COVID, that people may not want to come down, but at least they can get some more views. And I don't know if maybe even throw another one up on another building or something, just get a couple different angles. But I think for those that may not want to get out or in the weather or may want social distance, it's going to probably get a lot more use than normally.
Yeah, it's going to stay on.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other final comments or questions, or I will move us on? Thank you, team. I feel very inspired and also thankful that we have you working on this all as a massive team for our community. And I think it's just really fascinating what this is going to end up being. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will reconvene as the city council for the remaining agenda items. We have no non-agenda items. Interim city manager Nyland administrative report.
I'm still just the assistant city manager. I won't be interim until October 17th. Yes, I do have an administrative report. So I wanted to give you guys an update on the Public Safety Advisory Board. So as you know, the Community Caucus closed on September 30th, and we had community weigh in, and 16 candidates will be forwarded to you. You should be receiving a profile packet by early next week. We're setting a date of noon on October 20th. So you have the profiles of all those candidates, including responses to the questions we provided, as well as the supplemental questions that went out last week. And we've set aside 30 minutes on the October 27th meeting for you to deliberate and choose your 6 members and 2 alternate members. So that's coming up. Another report out that you'll be receiving is a report from Standards & Poor's and Moody's regarding the water system revenue refund bond ratings. Say that a few times. So in that report, you guys will see how actions and the practices of council and staff and the makeup of our community impacted the rating. You'll be happy to hear that both agencies provided some sound advice and reaffirmed that our practices and regular rate increases and healthy reserves were an important part of us receiving a very favorable rating. So good job to you and to staff. Some updates about COVID. As we know, we are still in phase 1. Oregon has seen an incredible surge in positive cases. We saw a 25% increase in positive cases since August 31st. So we are doubling down on our messaging to community about the importance of really adhering to the protocols set in place and hoping that we can get a decrease in those numbers. We are likely to remain in phase 1 for this foreseeable future. And in these uncertain times, we are seeing that needs continue to grow. In our Essential Hubs event that we had initially, the first one, over 75 cars came through that event. The event that we held 2 weeks ago, over 160 cars came through. So the need is there. And just wanted to call out to our HR department. They have been hard at work organizing a flu shot clinic for staff, and that's going to be held on November 4th. Just wanted to provide some updates about our communication because we know that's a high priority with you. We received 11 responses to the RFP for our website redesign, so that progress is moving forward, which is great. We've recorded and published 20 episodes of our Talking Tigard podcast, which have been downloaded close to 2,000 times, and we've received 15 positive reviews on iTunes, which is great. Good work to the comms team. Special shout out to Eduardo, who's on that team, for launching a podcast for in Spanish language, and that was launched on September 2nd, I believe, and we already have over 136 members who've joined that podcast. So it's really great as we work towards our equitable outreach and engagements. Other things to note: final interviews for our Parks and Rec Green Team Manager are scheduled for this week, so we know that's a really important hire and are looking forward to having someone join Team Tigard. Pumpkin scavenger hunt. So we've talked a lot about activities that are going on. In the first week of that launch, over 50 families participated in it. In total, over 76 families have experienced the pumpkin scavenger hunt. So comparing that to last year when we had the snowball scavenger hunt, in that month, 40 families participated. So we have seen great numbers and great success with that event. Just a reminder that the annual Great Shakeout is scheduled for this Thursday, October 20th at 10:15. So this is when you drop, cover, and hold for 30 seconds to prepare for earthquake preparation, essentially. As we heard earlier in this meeting, our leadership Tigard has that cohort had kicked off this week. We have 5 city staff who are participating, and it should be a very spirited group. We're looking forward to watching the development of that group and can't wait to get updates. And I just wanted to extend my deepest appreciation to you and everyone who helped make tonight's event to honor Marty so successful. She deserves the best, and she is the best. So thank you for all your help. And it was all transparent. We might have been a little creative in how we presented it, but the council calendar event was completely transparent and ethical because we talked about Marty's last date, which is a calendar event. So thank you again. And Marty, you're the best. So thank you.
Kathy, can I just add one thing about the Public Safety Advisory Board?
You may.
The council also needs to be prepared and will receive, unless the plan has changed, receive materials about the mental health homeless person, sort of the professional who works in that space.
Yep.
There will be applications for that position as well. So you're going to want to think about that because we'll be trying to make that appointment during the same meeting. So just a heads up on that.
Yeah, and we're including in your packets scorecards. So when you review them, you can make notations because we anticipate a really deliberation and choosing people is going to be difficult because we have some really qualified candidates. So it's going to be exciting to see the results. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for pointing out that there will be a mental health professional included in that packet.
You'll also get the results of the voting. So that doesn't have to be our only consideration, but there are some people that are in the group that got 25% of the votes compared to other people in the group, and that should at least be considered probably in our deliberation. So you'll get all that information as well.
Yep. So we're going to give you a week to prepare for that meeting.
All
so
right.
That's what I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no executive session. Is there a motion for adjournment?
I move to adjourn.
I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. City Recorder, roll call vote, please.
Counselor Lube,
Yes.
Counselor Anderson,
Yes.
Mayor Snyder,
Yes.
Council President Goodhouse,
Yes.
and Counselor Newton.
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned. Have a good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night.
Good night.